Welcome to the Voiceover Gurus Podcast.
No sugarcoating, no ego. Just real talk about the voiceover business.
We learn, we laugh, we lift each other up.
Because pretending it's easy helps no one.
The gurus don't promise fame, but they do promise truth.
It's not always glamorous, but it's always real.
It's the Voiceover Gurus Podcast.
Welcome back to another episode of the Voiceover Gurus Podcast. Topic-based year 2026 for me, and bringing on the lovely Susan Berkley for today's conversation. How are you, Susan?
I'm great, Linda. What a pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah, this is nice. This is really nice. So you and I have been doing this a heck of a long time. And one of the topics that I thought would be interesting to talk about is how you got started and the differences that you found between the 90s and today. And, obviously I have my opinions too. But tell me how you started out.
Sure. So like you, I was a radio person. I spent 15 years on the air. I was.
Where were you? Where were you?
So, in reverse order, I was on the Howard Stern show here in New York. In 86 and 87, I was.
Oh wow!
Did his traffic, and he made me a member of the cast. He called me Susan Berkley, and worked me into endless bits.
That's
but
cool.
I got my start in upstate New York. Then I went down to Florida, Tampa Bay, and I was working in rock radio and came back up. I'm from the New York area, grew up in Scarsdale. And I thought, well, let me just come back to New York. I made it in Florida. I'm on the top album Rock in the Afternoon. And I know I can make it into New York radio. And I worked part-time at almost every single radio station.
Oh.
It was crazy. And
Yeah.
I worked at, The Light You Listen To was nothing but love songs. And I also had a show on CBS AM, and I would get off the air and then go at 6, and then my next show started at 6.
Oh.
And the DJ knew, and I would take a cab across town and be on there. And I worked in jazz radio, and it was fantastic. But I thought, okay, so Shadow Traffic at the time was looking for people. And I thought, well, if I get on Shadow, I'll be on all these other stations. It'll be really good for my career. And then the Stern show came up, and I was the program director. And I said, I'm putting myself on that show. I just, by fiat, I put myself on that show. I didn't even let anybody audition for it.
That's cool.
And I did, and I spent 2 years with Stern. And it was after the first time I was on with him, I literally started to cry. He was so brutal. And I called him up. I had the hotline number, and I said, so I guess you guys really don't like me, or you're so mean to me on the air. And he goes, we love you. You're great.
Oh, he was testing you.
And I no, that's how they were. And I found my sea legs, and I just did the show for 2 years. And I was like, this is not my future. And he wasn't national then, but he was on his way, and I could tell the show was getting really, really huge. And I was getting really famous being on it. And I thought, I just can't do this. It's just too rough. I'm going to go into voiceover full time. And being in radio, you do VO, people invite you, and you make really good money. And you're like, whoa, because radio, as we all know, pays bupkis, as we say around here in New York. And so I said, okay, I'm going to quit. And I did, and it became big news. It actually ended up in the New York Post. Susan Berkley is quitting the Stern show. How could she? No, but I did. And I thought, okay, the world's going to beat a path to my door. I'm somewhat famous. They know me from the radio. And nothing happened, Linda. Nothing. Yeah. And I would go on these auditions. I had this one talent agent, and he was kind of moth-eaten. When he called, you could tell he was cradling the receiver between his ear and his shoulder, and he kind of talk like this. And it's
oh no,
he'd send me in these auditions. It's kid, we got one for Estee Lauder today. If you book this, it's $100,000 contract. And back then we would literally we'd have to go down to Madison Avenue and go into casting directors' offices to audition. And, I walk into that audition, and who's sitting there but Carrie Fisher.
Oh my
and I'm like,
God.
oh, great. I'm so going to get this right now. I didn't get it. She didn't get it. Some other woman who sounded like a real person.
And that's the reality of it. It's
reality.
It can go to anybody, whoever they subjectively that day feel fits the product.
Yeah, exactly. So So at that point, I was getting very, very broke because I was working in New York, living in New York, and didn't even have my paltry radio salary anymore. And so I had to take all these day jobs. So I became a waitress. I did telemarketing, selling deodorant crystals to funeral homes,
Oh my gosh.
And then there was I said, okay, I'm going to try singing telegrams. At least that'll be more fun,
Uh-huh.
And I worked for a company called Rent-A-Yenta. And the deal, all the while, like doing these little jobs on the side in radio here and there. I worked for almost every radio, like on the weekends. And so Rent-A-Yenta, it was the middle of July, it's 100 degrees outside. And they said, okay, we have a job for you. It's on 7th Avenue. You're going to sing an invitation to department store buyers for a fall fashion show. But there's a costume, and it's an elf costume. And it's 100 degrees outside, and I am dressed like a Christmas elf, trudging up 7th Avenue going, there's got to be a better way. There's got to be a better way. So one day I got this gig, voiceover, quite by accident. It was like random. Someone remembered me from the radio, and I'm like doing this job, and it was with a man, and we were alternating voices, and we went down to the street, and, I'm fishing in my pocket for a subway token, and he's getting into a gorgeous Jaguar sedan. And I said, Bob, what are you doing? And he said, kid, let me take you for lunch. I said, because you're getting so much more work than I am.
Yeah.
And he opens his laptop and he says, see all these names? These are my clients. And when my prospects, when I'm not doing voiceovers, I'm marketing. And I was like, you're what? To market for this? And he goes, yeah. And he kind of like told me what he did. And I was like, whoa. And there's a library and I can read books on sales and marketing. And Linda, I had one credit card that wasn't tapped out. And I said, okay.
What year was this, by the way? What year was this?
Oh, maybe like by then, 89, 90, something like that. And I said, I'm going to the top. And I'm going to take a marketing seminar from the top marketing guru in New York. And his name is Jay Abraham. Now, and so Jay coaches Damon John from Shark Tank. He works with Tony Robbins. And so the seminars back then, it was $5,000.
Wow.
And that was the credit card limit on this one card that I had left. So I went and I sat in that room with all these business people, and I was the only voice talent there.
Wow.
And I went back to my little apartment in New York City, and I said, I got to make this work.
Yeah.
And I took massive imperfect action, and I started learning about direct response marketing and how to sell myself and all that stuff. It had to work. And you know what? It did. So before long, I booked AT&T, which I was their voice for many, many years. I was their signature voice. And that was life-changing for me, and over time. And then I became the voice of Citibank, which I still am today. And and other things as well. I do all kinds of voiceover like we all do. But my business was underway. And I also started a coaching business and a production company.
Oh, interesting.
So
busy.
Yeah, because I had at the time a really good voice for IVR, which we all know as phone prompts.
Yes.
And in those days, that was when it was just becoming a thing, and it was actually the internet was becoming a thing in 90. Prior to that, we'd get all of our scripts, by Messenger.
Right.
Right. Fax machine and even Messenger. And we'd record it on reel to reel. It was insane.
Tape.
So things started to take off, and all of a sudden, before I knew it, I had a business. I had a coaching business and I had a production company, and I thought, wow. So people are hiring me for my voice because I have very clear speech, and it didn't set off touch tones at the time. They would hire a lot of women's voices, they were good for these phone prompts. And they said, okay, you can do English, but can you do Spanish? And I thought, well, whoa. And so I started hiring voices in other languages. And we became known for that. We did very, very well for a number of years as both having a production company and, my own voiceover. And so, you ask how the business has changed. I think the internet was, number one, the huge game changer for us.
For sure.
And we could have our own studios. And
I know I moved up here to New York in 97 from Florida.
Yeah.
And at that point, it was like I had biggest fish in small market, Fort Myers. I had car spots, which was the way to make the biggest clients in that market.
Sure.
And I was like, I know I can make more money than this, so stars in my eyes, I'm going to come to New York. So I did in 97, got the agent, got the job in radio. I was working at KJoy 98.3 and used that as my platform to try to go out and get some voiceover, I was getting the auditions through the agent, which was great, but the same thing. Travel to the city because I was on Long Island, take the time, go to the audition, turn around, come back. Then I moved to the city for a few years. That made it easier. But that struggle began at that point. Very building, character building. But yeah, and I had started to build a small studio because one of my closest friends is Brian Lee. And so he would say to me, Lynn, you got to get an ISDN line. This is the way to get to the major networks. And I was like, okay. So I borrowed money from my parents because it was like $5,000 for this box and had it installed and tried to start to branch out a little bit. I am not good at marketing. So I literally was like feeling my way in the dark to figure out how to do this. But he was right. And that was the way to try at least make myself more available to, higher quality clients.
I had all that too. I had an ISDN line as well, and for a while I was the voice of CNBC. I had Lifetime. Early Lifetime, I was their promo voice. So coming from radio, we can do all that stuff. We don't timing, have a lot of, facility with that type of hard sell kind of excited stuff.
That's what my dream was always. I'm like, I want to be the promo voice of Lifetime and voice of Tampax commercial. For some reason, when I moved to New York, I was like, that's it. But I wound up being the voice of TLC. So I thought,
that's
okay,
great.
that's
awesome.
close.
It's wonderful.
No Tampax, but
Do you know the first big national network spot I booked was for Purina Horse Chow?
Oh, nice.
And I've never been on a horse.
But you made it sound like you had, and that's the selling point.
Purina Horse Chow is everything a horse can need. I remember the jingle and everything.
That's cool.
Crazy. Yeah, so it's so much fun. Really a wonderful business. I love.
It is, but it's nutty. And so anyway, what I was saying is that I was building a little studio for myself, and my New York agents were like, why are you doing that? And I was like, because this is how things are moving. And the internet was just coming in. And they would look at me like I was crazy. It's like, no, we have to start embracing. And they were like the last holdouts to sending auditions remotely. They were like, no, the casting director wants to see you. Honestly, COVID was probably the best thing that happened in regards to that.
For sure. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, because back then we literally, as you know, we went live. So you'd spend your days going from ad agency to ad agency, or you would audition at casting director's offices or at your agent, but you were in traffic just walking around New York City all day.
Yeah. Looking for a bathroom. Barnes & Noble was great.
Yeah, and we'd see our friends. But so I got work with IBM, so early, deep into IVR voice response stuff. So I remember sitting for hours. This gig lasted like months, and they had me like all wired up in a special way because my voice had to go into their system, and I had to sit there, and I was like reading people's emails that they wanted to get as much of my voice as possible, to chop it into early. To what AI now does,
Right. Now, I did a lot of IVR stuff myself, and I don't know if you remember the bank WAMU, Washington Mutual.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so I became their voice. And they actually flew me to Chicago, 3 days of 9,000 prompts.
Yeah, yeah.
So
it's killer.
And they, with little machines, could put everything, the concatenation, the different inflections.
Yeah.
But I don't think anyone used my voice, had me read something like you're saying and used it to work. Mine was a little more simple than that.
No, I got deep into those complex systems, and I, one.
Yes.
Two. And, sometimes, Linda, I think, if I'm a bad girl and I go to hell, my job in hell is going to be the temperature in hell is 1 million degrees. Time in hell, it's 367. You know what I mean? On and on. That's what it felt like.
But now, how have you handled, though, the shift with the style? Because now having these beautiful voices that enunciate it's like, I know my agents were like, don't tell anybody you're in radio. It was like a horrible thing. And then it became this voice that I practiced and worked on my whole life suddenly isn't the voice that they want. They want me to be myself. And I was like, who the heck am I? I've been training and training and training for this perfect, everything's clear as a bell, how do
Yeah,
you handle
exactly.
that?
How do we dirty it up? So
Yeah.
I took acting lessons. We basically have to deconstruct ourselves. So you have that piece, and then as you age, and then post-menopause, your voice changes as well.
Yay!
So yeah, so all of that stuff. But I think at the end of the day, it's really voice acting. So
Right.
it's like, who are you? Who are you talking to? What is the emotion? Like, how can I read this with one, give myself a scenario to have one emotion and then switch the scenario to something different and
Mhm.
like just visualize that whole thing. And that's the best that you can do,
Yeah.
but we struggle with that. No DJs, no announcer, none of that.
Yep.
You're too polished. Well, what's wrong with having a beautiful voice?
I know. It became a detriment to a
Yeah.
degree,
And knowing how to speak English, for goodness sake.
I know. And I let people know, I say, the diction has a place,
Yeah.
medical narration, things that are of
Perfect.
importance, but otherwise relax yourself and try. But it's difficult because we have this perception of, I need to be, some people that come to me because I coach as well, that I need to be the announcer and say everything with such perfection. And it's like, no, you have to find that authenticity in your delivery.
And, I think a big tip for newcomers is don't listen to yourself, like work without headphones, or if someone's directing you, take one ear off.
Mm-hmm.
So you're not in a closed feedback loop to yourself.
Right.
Yeah, I call that vocal narcissism.
That's
And
a good phrase.
that kills any read,
Yeah. Yeah. So definitely it's shifted, but you love the industry still.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
I was born to be behind the microphone. This is my thing. I just love any opportunity to express myself vocally, I coach people in public speaking, and so I work with them, with business people to help them, and at a very high level, like I can, I'm a consultant, but, it's sort of voiceover adjacent, but I've done, I know a lot of entrepreneurs. I was the voice, do political ads a lot.
Right.
I love those. Yeah. So, the industry, I'm not on any of the pay-to-plays, though.
Yeah. I'm not as either. I was.
Yeah. I know you were. I was listening to the previous episode, and you did well on
I
those.
got some good clients that I still have today, but I'm not on them anymore. I just don't find it to be rewarding for me anyway.
It's kind of messes with your head. You do the best you can, and then they don't even get to you, or they don't have the criteria anymore.
Like I tell students, I say, I think it's a good thing for you to start off with, so you have the practice of having to turn around copy very quickly and get that, confidence, but don't stick with it. It's like, do it for a year and then get out there, and in addition to doing your direct marketing. But so the voice, the pay to plays have changed tremendously too. So
they have, and there's some shady stuff going on that people don't like, But, at the end of the day, there are really 4 ways to get work.
Yeah.
The first way is referrals. And many people get their first gigs through friends. I got that. My first national spot was a union gig through a referral from a friend.
Oh, that's cool.
And we have a lot of our people that we coach, we give the whole method on how to do that. And they end up with the first 1 or 2 things. But if that only goes so far. So you do have to audition. And I'm like you, I totally agree that new people should absolutely go on the pay to play. It's just to get, if you have the budget for it, just to practice and put your flag in the ground. You're a voice artist. Get the experience working from home and all that stuff. And then you have the freelance sites, you have Fiverr and you have Upwork. And if you can, I always say if you can stand Fiverr and stick with it, I know people that do extremely well there.
I was very judgmental about Fiverr, and I was pulling people away from it. I'm like, no, you got to value yourself more. And now the more students that I see that are having success, like you're saying, I realize, okay, there is a way that it can be done, that you can, support yourself. And a few of them at Upwork are doing very well with Upwork.
Yeah, me too. My people too. So people on Upwork, so customers on Upwork have a higher lifetime value than Fiverr. I think it's somewhere in the $5,000 lifetime value range for Upwork versus a few hundred for Fiverr. But the thing is, Fiverr has millions more. Upwork doesn't get the traffic that Fiverr does. So it's like some of this, some of that, But they're both great. I think Upwork's a little more sane to get into. It's a little easier for people.
Same. That's a good word.
Yeah. And the final thing is what I learned from Jay Abraham, which is, you create a hot list of people that you want to work with. And then you market yourself to them. These days, mostly people don't pick up the phone anymore, unfortunately. So you're on LinkedIn trying to network and finding ways to meet them and get referrals. And, you stick with it. You have to be very, very persistent. People call it grinding it out. I don't like to use that term because this is our work. It's kind of disrespectful.
Right.
But it's like practicing the piano. You want to get really good at it. You have to invest the time to create the energy to make the business go.
It's a craft. It's a craft too, and you have to hone your skills. I've wound up kind of transitioning because I'm 55. Mm-hmm. So, now at this point, I'm like, okay, I'm done with the auditioning. I'll audition if an agent sends me something, but otherwise it's not something first on my list. So I've transitioned, and it was no purpose of my own. I wound up getting a lot of autistic students on the spectrum. So I coach them. Yeah. And I coach them for performance, so it's like it all links together, and they all want to be behind a microphone. For them, though, it's like gaming, animation, and it's very pleasurable, honestly, because the energy that they bring to the sessions is fantastic. But that was came out of left field, and then all of a sudden, oh, you were recommended, da 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 da, and it's a nice side, passion in addition to the community too. I don't know if you know about the community that I have, the Voiceover Gurus community.
Yeah, I heard listening to your podcast.
Yeah,
it's lovely.
I'm a big fan.
That's how I feel too, Linda. We're both of us, I think, are very focused on giving back and working with people and helping them. So it's not so narcissistic. There's a lot of actors that are very narcissistic, unfortunately for them. And many of people that aren't, it's a super giving business with lovely, lovely people that want to help.
I feel like in our stage, and I don't know if this is for you, mm-hmm. I achieved the goals I wanted. I mean, I was the voice of Disney for 14 years, and that was my dream. So I feel like I did it. I'm good. I want to help other people if they have the same, focuses. But otherwise, yeah, exactly. I want to help, give back, do whatever I can to give people the realistic information regarding this industry and how difficult it is. But, if you're tough and you love it, that's what I said. You love being behind a microphone, you're golden. Keep going.
Sure. And now, of course, we have audiobooks, which a lot of our students do extremely well there. And they wanted, our people a lot of them are in retirement age, and they're thrilled to just sit and record books all day. And they're getting recognition. They're scratching an itch.
That's its own passion, audiobooks.
It is. It's not something that I have the patience to do.
Yeah, me.
I can't sit there.
I tried. It was not good.
Not my thing. Not my thing. But many people it is.
Yeah.
So, we bring experts in to help them, but it's great. It's wonderful that we have this. I mean, so what else is new in the business? I'm trying to think these days. I think if a person can learn how to be an entrepreneur, that's really how I help people, because I did build a very successful business. And, I've had not one, but 2 7-figure clients, so not for nothing. That's it. So I know what I'm doing, So I love to help people with that because I find it very, very empowering to help people to really understand what marketing is, how to sell yourself. And
that's valuable.
Yeah. And so if you do it with your voice, great, but at least you have that skill.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And it's key. It's paramount, to be able to market.
It is. So, and then now you have a lot of, my marketing assistant, she is really deep into the creator community for, these people are creating their own, back to doing audio dramas again. Yes. So that's like the old radio days. So they're creating those. They're doing their own animation projects. And she's getting her start, getting in on the ground floor with them. And getting their podcasts, these audio dramas in podcast form. Mm-hmm. And so she's learning character work and all of that stuff. So that's pretty cool too, I think, for people.
So I was going to ask you what you thought VO for this many years, 30 years, has really taught you. And I think, for me, it has taught me to be flexible and to adapt to the changes that have come in the industry, as opposed to saying, I'm too old for this or I can't modify. So for me, that has been what I feel that I can take away from this. What about you?
Yeah. So the saddest thing to me is to see someone become bitter.
Oh, yeah.
So we saw that a lot when the internet made voiceover much more open to so many more people. You might have seen it in some of your old-time peers from radio and things like, they had it all sewn up and then all of a sudden everything opens up.
Right.
You got to be flexible. You got to dance with who brung you, You have to adapt and you have to change because it's not about us. It's about our customers. It's about our market.
Mm-hmm.
So the biggest lesson I think that I've taken away all these years is it is not about our voice.
Interesting.
We are blessed to have beautiful instruments that are versatile and we can use. But, Linda, it's not about us at the end of the day. And I think really the best voiceover is voiceover where we're not even aware that there's a voice there. We're forming images. We have feelings. So if we're too obvious, we're not doing our best job. That's not good voiceover, I don't think.
Right.
If you are paying attention to the voice, something's wrong.
Something's wrong. Interesting. That's
So
interesting.
how can we get out of the way and really get deeply into what our customers' mindset? So I've done a lot of direct response radio and TV.
Mm-hmm.
So I was the voice years ago of Topsy Tail. See, if you're getting bored with your hair, don't despair. Now there's an exciting new look. So I do a really great hard sell. So I would do a ton of those. And I was like, oh man, I'll never forget one. It was Jaffa blocks. This is the stupidest thing. I mean, it had a dumb jingle, Jaffa blocks. And they were these plastic things that you could, like for a dorm room or something, and make these blocks and stick stuff in them. And I went to the session with like a real attitude. I didn't let anybody see it because I'm like, oh, I got to read this really stupid thing. And I get there, and there's this woman. She's the entrepreneur. She created this. Oh, wow. This was her baby. So how dare I have an attitude? I got over it really quick.
Right.
But it's sort of like Shark Tank,
Oh,
so
yeah.
we work with those people. Our job is to help them further their vision. So if you believe in entrepreneurship, as I do,
yes.
I think our country's messed up. We got a lot of problems. But one thing we can do here is be entrepreneurs. People have no clue. I travel internationally a lot. What a blessing we have here.
For sure.
So
we do.
I really respect and I'm so grateful that through this medium, I've been able to start a business. I'm completely unemployable for decades now, so I know how to take care of myself and I can take care of others with the work that I do behind the microphone.
That's
longevity. It's longevity, but I can support other entrepreneurs by helping them bring their vision to the market. That's really, to me, an honor.
Yeah, agreed.
It's not about me. It's about their stupid blocks.
Yeah.
The people.
I don't want you to be jealous, but I was the voice of the perfect bacon bowl.
Oh, there you go.
For a good long while.
I have pearls by the yard.
Some of them I love doing those jobs, though. But some of the craziest products. But yeah,
it's so much fun because it's so happy and so upbeat, and you're using your timing chops and they're so what's the word? They're all the same. Bad news, good news.
Right. I know.
Now get 3.
I know. They are entertaining for sure. I do miss them. I haven't really done much lately, but those are always good.
They don't pay great, but they're fun.
They're fun.
Yeah.
So, Susan, you have your own podcast. Tell me about that.
I do. It's called The Great Voice Podcast. That's the name of my company. It's The Great Voice Company at greatvoice.com. So we have this podcast. And what we do is we actually interview members of our community so I'm coaching them. And so people that listen get a free lesson. You listen and you hear me coach people. And we're really active we're in our 3rd season right now, and we've got sponsors and everything. It's really
great.
It's so much fun. I love doing it. It's the closest thing to being on the air, you know?
Yeah. No, podcast is a labor of love.
It sure is. It is a labor of love.
Yeah. But
But you've got a lot of episodes. I enjoyed it. I was listening around. I heard the one where you were speaking about losing your voice, which was deeply touching to me.
Yeah.
Deeply, deeply touching. And, this happens to many, many people. The voice is the organ of the soul. But we think it's
my identity.
disconnected.
Yeah. My identity has been wrapped up in it since I was 5 years old,
Sure.
So, but yeah, that's the difference with my podcast episodes now is that they're not as informational. They're more, to industry folks or my friends talking about, situations that do happen how to handle it and know, hey, we're all human beings and we all cope and get through it one day at a time.
Yeah, I was deeply touched by that, and I've enjoyed you have a nice, easy way with your guests, and people come on and they're really honest and want to help your listeners. It's great.
Yeah, that's what we're here for.
That's what we're here for, right? At the end of the day.
I appreciate you coming on, Susan.
Thank you,
This is
Linda.
really nice to finally meet you. I know I've always heard your name, and I believe I remember it's the AT&T connection, but that's so cool. That's so cool.
Thank you, too. Thanks for sharing. I appreciate it.
Yeah. That's it, guys. Wrapping up another episode of the Voiceover Gurus podcast. And I'll be back soon. Yeah, I'm not really sure who's coming next, but that's the joy of this type of thing and having your own podcast. Have a great day.